Hey everybody, welcome back to You Are Free TV. It is Tuesday, July 21st, 2026. And I'm so glad to be back with you here on the channel. Having some technical difficulties, so I'm having to do this in a different way, but we'll just jump right in here with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech, as well as Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, financial, or medical advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. So glad to be back with you here on this Tuesday. So much going on, and I'm going to jump right in as soon as I say thank you. Thank you to everyone so much who supports the channel monthly. I so appreciate you, totally. And then Nancy, thank you so much for the donation and the words. And yes, I do peruse, and we know on Rumble they got that interesting second thing on the leaderboard there on Rumble every day. It's always very interesting to watch, and we know. And this video might be connected to that a bit because of Israel last. The whole Q phenomenon of saying Israel will be last in the takedown operation that is defeating the globalists connected to the bankster elite. And so we're going to jump into that. We're going to be talking about a lot of things. The Lebanon President Auon coming to the White House today, huge, with these pilot zones that the IDF, that Israel has already violated with still firing into Lebanon after this agreement with the pilot zones in Lebanon already created to say there's going to be peace, and that the president, who was the former commander of the army of Lebanon, is basically saying, yes, the Lebanese army can take care of Hezbollah and disarm them, and that this agreement has already been made with President Trump, and this is ongoing. And so there's so much else besides here as we look at this whole, just a giant leviathan of step-by-step maneuvers that President Trump and his team are doing to get us out of the globalist control of world power. And his aim is, and his spoken administrative Pentagon Middle East doctrine is that there will be peace in the Middle East, that the USA will be receding from it militarily once Iran has been finished. Once this is reached, that there will be a receding of the USA from the Middle East, and what will come in its place is trade and prosperity, and that the USA militarily will be out but economically in, and that this has everything to do with why we're seeing such massive fight back from the bankster elites of the globalists, the IRGC, strongholds there, apparently uber connected to the fraud in the United States to do with Medicare, okay, Medicaid, the fraud to do through the Somalis hugely, but other groups as well connected to the IRGC and funding it, and also funding all of this Jubaland, civil war stuff out of Somalia. All of this is happening, and Trump is taking it down step by step, and that's why it is so confusing as we continue to watch all of this going on. And that's why I say Israel last, because I believe there is a leveraging here that the Trump administration continues to do in a very interesting step-by-step plan that I would kind of call like, it's kind of number one, controlling Israel more than ever. As we look through history of the last 60 years plus, we have all of the major false flag events have been conducted by Israel, right? And it has gotten the USA into multiple massive wars in the Middle East, massively, 9/11, etc. at all, and even before then, right? But wars across the board that have to do with the bankster elite of the City of London, and of course the Rothschild banks, huge in there. But so controlled more than ever now is Israel. Okay, this has never happened before, where you're having a U.S. president take them in hand and rein them back in. Then we have them being exposed to the huge, and when I say Israel, I'm talking about the elites that are in charge of it, okay, connected to the bankster globalist elite. Okay, this is the people who are carrying out the most despicable acts across the world. And they think they should be paid back for it. That's always what they've thought. Obscene at all. The control. We'll be in this video talking also about what has come out of the, the ritual abuse, massive scandal coming out of Israel in the last many months that has been reaching the USA. And we see into the psychology behind this when we look at these programs across the world to do with MK Ultra and beyond. But then we get number 3, that Israel's now being very, very despised across the world for what is being exposed, what they did in Gaza, but beyond. And, for me, this is like, I can't stand Islamism. I can't stand any of it, okay? So, but what's being exposed here is this exposure of Israel's role in all of these false flag phenomenons, their genocidal attacks on Gaza and the Palestinians. We have this thing with Lebanon being very important here with the president today, and we're going to get into that in a moment. But then in the end, where there will be this, this control, this defeat of Israel's power. And this is as we're looking at, right, Section 219, the NDAA, also the SIAA, the Senate Intelligence Appropriations Bill that wants to fuse Israel, okay? And so we have to look at this and wonder what's going on, and your action, of course, is very needed there to call your senators, 202-224-3121, 2321 for Thune directly, where we want Israel not fused into either of these things. And we have, of course, Mike Johnson coming out today saying, oh, we must just deal with this SAVE Act. We must get it done because I just can't stand having to deal with this anymore, basically, because he is, a shill. And so while we look at all this, and we look at how Israel, has performed all for the globalists for so many years, these false flag attacks from everything from 80 years ago, well, over 100 years ago, right back to Bolshevism, before Israel even existed, this creation of an assassin class that was going to continue to carry out all these false flags that got America super trapped up in spending tons of our taxpayer dollars to support foreign wars and to support the City of London, the recapture of the United States after, as we're here in America 250, the recapture of the United States into this the City of London controlled elite stealing all of our money. And so in their mindset, for entertainment purposes only, it's like, we deserve more land, we deserve Lebanon, we deserve the whatever it is, the river to the sea situation, because we have carried out all of these awful things, and we are the king of the assassins that will come out and attack as needed everywhere, and we're the giant experts at it, right? And so as we look at this, we have to look at what happened with Lebanon today and what happened with President Trump in his meeting with the president of Lebanon. And so in Lebanon, they divide, they have a president and a prime minister, and I think the speaker of, or the head of their, I don't know the actual body in my mind right now, but basically you get a Christian president, and then you get a Shiite prime minister. This happens every time. And then there is, I think, a Sunni, or maybe it is I don't have it in my mind at this moment, but this is how they divide up their government. And so the Lebanese president, who is Joseph Auon, he came today to the White House. And this is huge because they're doing this thing called their pilot zones, where President Trump is saying, Israel, get out of Lebanon. And instead, the Lebanese army is going to disarm Hezbollah. And Hezbollah is huge in this whole, you listen to different outfits and they're like, Hezbollah never did anything to anybody. They're defending the Christians. No, it's not at all like that, okay, or that simple at all. This is very much connected to IRGC, and there is the disarming of Hezbollah that the Trump team is trying to do so that there will not be this excuse for Israel to take over southern Lebanon. We're already seeing the finance minister and, of course, the crazy finance minister of Israel and the crazy defense minister coming out and saying, no, we deserve southern Lebanon. It should be ours. But basically, what we had here in this meeting around Lebanon today was really important, and this had to do with President Trump, basically saying to this Marionite Christian, former commander of the army in Lebanon, who is now the president, that basically he's saying that, that Lebanon has been disrespected for too long. And this is 80 years of war with Israel, okay? And this guy grew up in southern Lebanon. He knows what's been going down. And basically, he then, became the head of the army. And he's saying that, what President Trump had to say, it's time for Lebanon to be respected again. They love their country and they deserve to be in control of it. And this is when Beirut, back in the day, used to be the most amazing, incredible, the Paris of the Middle East, they used to call it. It was just an amazing place to be. Super modern, Christian. Lebanon was Christian. Okay, vast majority. And now you have to have this president with all of these Muslim other leaders. Now it's vastly reduced in the amount of Christians there. And so basically, Trump had also said in this bilateral, presser before his meeting with Auon, he said that, that Auon had the opportunity to be one of the leading voices in what is coming with Middle East peace. And what is coming with Middle East peace, per the Trump administration's own words, is that they are they're planning to have basically a situation where there is the removal of the U.S. militarily from the Middle East and the introduction of instead bilateral trade agreements, and this will be governed by the Abraham Accords. And so Trump meeting with Auon today was really huge, okay, really huge. And we're going to continue to talk about that in a minute. Talk about the repercussions of it, what it means to, in Trump hearing that the IDF has already been attacking into those zones. It's almost like a labyrinth of squirreling down into Israel's efforts, okay, to derail the President Trump administration's huge moves, okay, to stop Israel's role as the #1 assassin, false flag nation for the globalist financial elite, okay, out of the city of London, etc. And this gets into the IRGC and how we're going to see, I'm going to talk about in this video, we literally are, with our taxpayer dollars, what they're finding out is that our taxpayer dollars, we've heard about, out of Minnesota, how there was just thousands of, actually tons of millions of dollars in cash going through the St. Paul airport straight to Somalia, Well, same thing's happening in Maine, and this gets into Jubaland, it gets into Somaliland, it gets into these straits, right? As I talked about in my last video, or a couple videos um, recently, where there is the Bab al Mandab Strait there, that is from Saudi Arabia's access, the Suez Canal, Red Sea, Indian Ocean, all of it, where now, as I said, there would be, as Israel had put its new military presence into Somaliland, suddenly there will be this closing of the strait. And I had said that a couple videos ago, and now it's being announced. Oh, the Houthis are going to close the strait, right? And so what's also going on with Besant and Hegseth, etc., is that they are discovering, and with Secretary RFK Jr. out of HHS, this money is being laundered from all the Medicare, Medicaid fraud, all of these home care places, all of these Somali, very much Somali is huge in this picture, out of Maine, out of Minnesota. I'm going to fund, this is in the hundreds of millions of dollars, going to fund all of this warfare to do with Jubaland, to do with this. It used to be funded by USAID, okay, when they wanted to create Somaliland for the Bank of London, and then we get the London banksters, but then we get the Muslim Brotherhood situation of Jubaland, right, with South Sudan and Somalia, and this creation of how to create a new proxy army out of there, and what Trump is doing is saying, hey, Israel, why don't you go down to Somaliland, right? But now we have these FFs coming, right, where the Houthis are now going to attack this new strait and shut off the shipping. And so it is a step-by-step process. It's what I'm trying to describe here in the leveraging of Israel's what they do, okay? Leveraging them step by step, okay, as Trump is moving through, okay, the decapitation of what has been created through the Obama, Brennan, City of London, all of it for so many decades, McCain, Graham, the creation of all of this control of the energy flow that feeds back tons of the money back to Pilgrim Society, City of London, to control our energy prices, but also just massive money laundering. And this is coming back to be found out to be connected so much to the Medicaid, Medicare fraud, the home health businesses, all of it. And, doesn't that just make so much sense? It absolutely does. And so let's look at that a little bit. I think I might mention first, in response to Trump saying that Lebanon is going to be respected, we're creating these pilot zones, and that the IDF must stop its activities in southern Lebanon. We have Ben-Gvir, the defense minister of Israel, crazy guy, basically saying that they will not allow South Lebanon to repopulate, right? As I said in my videos a couple of weeks ago, they're already putting up their settlers, right, to move into southern Lebanon. They believe they deserve it because of services paid for by old regimes. Okay, everything that they've done for the City of London, everything that Mossad and the Secret Service of the Secret Police of Israel have done to create this this awful, evil, situation of the U.S. Taxpayer money going out to fund our own demise through energy repression and etc. All of it is what is going on. And so we get Ben-Gvir, the defense minister, saying we cannot allow South Lebanon to repopulate the areas the IDF has already taken, because Israel had already sent in its settler terrorists to basically cause more mayhem there, and that's already been happening. And it's interesting, connected to the ritual abuse stuff I mentioned at the beginning of the video, is that the woman, I think it's Hannah Strook, I think her name is Hannah Strook, but she was the minister, I believe. I might be getting the name wrong, but I'll try to link it below. Reported on this way back in March, okay? And her daughter, she's in charge of resettlement projects, okay? Resettlement projects, meaning sending in these terrorist brigades of total radical Israelis, a lot of them connected to ultra-Orthodox, but it's not only that. They're cult mind programmed, okay? Where her daughter had come out and exposed being involved in massive ritual abuse growing up, and she's now dead. That daughter is now dead. When I reported it, she was still alive. She had fled the country. Now she's dead. The ritual abuse scandal of 7 million, Jewish people living in Israel, and there's 2 million who apparently aren't Jewish, that they have this situation of a 20% of only 5% of crimes being reported, shows that at least 20% of kids, both male and female, are sexually abused in Israel. And then they have this insane thing with the same reporting of only 5% crimes reported, of 52% of kids being emotionally or psychologically abused. This is insane, and yet par for the course. And again, I wish for the Israeli people to escape from this crazy maniacal situation, because for entertainment purposes only, this is a Radhanite created scenario. This is a Radhanite country based on a stolen identity, and it's so nuts when you go back down into the genealogy and where all these people come from. But this situation of severe psychological and physical and sexual abuse is really huge. And so this woman, who was in charge of the resettlement terrorists, apparently her family hugely connected, daughter now dead, with underground satanic ritual abuse, and this getting into a much larger thing that's being exposed by Israeli news outlets, Israel Hayam, even the Jerusalem Post, all of these news outlets showing that there is this massive ritual abuse situation to do with the Haredi Orthodox Jews that have huge connection to the settler population. And then they also reach right into like Brooklyn Heights, into New York, into I think it's the Chabad Lubavitch, worldwide headquarters. You remember, like last year, a year ago or so, there was the situation of the underground tunnels in the temple. They had discovered they were actually causing problems with buildings next doors, how they were able to be raided, and there was like mattresses and cameras. Well, more recently, like in the last few months, but it's been super hush-hush, there was this huge thing of like lots and lots of children, okay, being taken out of those tunnels. That was really recent. And then you get also, these reports of survivors of this satanic MK Ultra situation. When Iran, it's very interesting, when Iran was first striking Israel back in the first assault on Iran by the U.S. after Israel started it, there was reports of, there's these underground hospitals, and all these kids got rescued out of these underground hospitals after there was this these attacks. And so we're looking at this, what we call MK Ultra, but that's an old term for an ongoing, we can look to Epstein as an example of it. We can look to Gina Haspel, one of the purveyors of the 2020 election steal. We can look to John Brennan. We can look to these people, and one thing they all have in common is a connection to this cabal that is ultra dialed in to what is the mind control, sexual abuse, racket, cartel, okay, that feeds this into the larger consciousness, with the whole effort of it, of course, being a transhumanism capture of the human mind, right? These theta states that they want to put everybody into a transformation, as Kathy O'Brien would say, where they capture your mind through these devices, for instance, or if you listen to different things that might add to that, but basically capture your mind, put you in a trance state, and continue to manipulate your mind. But for the kids, what they go through is torture, and it's satanic, literally satanic. It's satanic what they're finding out about the ritual abuse cults out of Israel, and more than that. So let's get to Israeli Foreign Minister Smotrich, again, another psycho, that they believe, he says, we love the ongoing U.S.-Iran conflict. We will not get involved or commit troops to it because we know that as the U.S. suffers and as Iran suffers, the economic degradation of both countries absolutely benefits Israel. And, we have to wonder who's really hitting those Hormuz Strait ships, right? Who's really about to blow up the Al Babandab Strait there outside of Yemen, and all of this going on, right? So as we keep looking at this, and I know I'm getting a little squirrely about all this, but I feel it strongly that there is a plan behind the plan, a step-by-step, as I keep saying in my videos. There's a step-by-step here where there is the somewhat leveraging of what Israel does by the Trump administration, of what the Mossad and their actions do through the IDF and ongoing. But it is a step-by-step that will lead ultimately to the demise of Israel power and Israel expansionism. And as the city of London gets defeated, as the IDF, as the IRGC, same thing, gets exposed, there will be less and less places for them to go, okay? Especially as the USA pulls more and more of their military out of the Middle East, and also Europe, because Trump is also saying we're going to pull 20,000 troops out of Europe. All of this being the Trotskyites that run the Ukraine war, all of this being, Israel North with the Ukraine war, all of this, they are the assassins for the bankster elite. And so as we're going to continue to watch this happen, I will just mention this. We have this Somali-funded money transfer bank out of Portland, Maine, and it's called Dahab Shield. It's connected to a representative there, Democrat representative out of South Portland, Maine, Yusuf, who is the owner of Care for Everyone, a Medicaid fraud group connected to, I think it's Gateway, the Gateway, I'll get to that in a moment. Okay, so we have the home care fraud out of Yusuf, Democrat representative out of Southern Maine, connected to the Somali money transfer bank, Dahab Shiel, okay, connected to Maine Care. Okay, Maine Care is the name of the umbrella organization that Maine taxpayers are paying into, getting federal money no more, since it's been exposed by Besson et al. That's what Besson is doing. That's what people need to understand. This going after the money, going after the funds. And we saw some of this today from a presser by RFK Jr. Out of HHS talking about the Medicare fraud, and that is ongoing. And so they use these Somali businesses, front groups, to send all of this Medicaid, tens and tens of millions through, that they then funnel out of the country to, we think of Jubaland or all of these places where they're fomenting revolution and creating these new Muslim Brotherhood proxy areas, but it's also going straight to the IRGC. And this is where people, don't get the full picture. And they think, oh, we're in another federal war. This is just, another thing. Trump's lost his mind. You listen to people, AJ and all these people, oh, Trump's has lost his mind. He doesn't know what he's doing. Yes, he knows what he's doing, people. We have all of this money funneling out to the IRGC, okay, to the Muslim Brotherhood organizations, trying to prevent there being any peace in the Middle East, and at the very least, certainly not any operational trade bilateral agreements with the United States. And so when we look at this, we get this example that the IRGC parked a sanctioned oil vessel in Somalia last August, laundering tons of money back to Somalia at the port of Berbera. And the CEO of Dahab Shield Bank Group, remember this is out of Portland, Maine, okay, connected to the Portland, Maine, South Portland Democrat representative, Yusuf, okay, where we see that the CEO of the Dahab Shield Bank Group, Adir Rashid Dual, attended the ceremony and the money laundering offload operation from this vessel, connected to Horn Petroleum, that Dahab Shield Bank subsidiary, with these tankers that they had pulled the name off the tanker, but they know it's they think it's the Clifton, and they know it's an IRGC tanker sanctioned by the U.S. government, as being IRGC Iranian oil connected, and they also call it the Queen Luca, also known as. And this is all being funded through the Medicaid fraud. So we think of it, and it's so awful, all the ripping off of the money from the American people are taxpayer dollars, right? Obamacare, yay! All of this fraud on steroids with Biden has been going into these, when we look at these migrants that are organized in huge do not assimilate situations, Muslims, they're taking over everywhere, okay, taking over Texas, taking over Maine, taking over Michigan, Minnesota. They are funneling this money back to the Muslim Brotherhood, to the IRGC. It's a real thing. It's not invented, okay? And this is where we have Yusuf with Care for Everyone, his own private business of Medicaid fraud care, coming straight way out of this thing. Oh, that's what I was trying to say. Gateway Community Services with almost 30 million from Maine Care, okay, through the last 5 years, plus 700,000 in COVID money. And this guy even tried to run for office in this thing called Jubaland, where they're doing this whole new color revolution. All of this used to be USAID funded, and now it's not. And so they're scrambling, right, to get the rest of whatever money they can steal from the United States through the Medicaid fraud to fund these Muslim Brotherhood steals. This is like Lewiston, Maine, with a whole other thing, with its mosque being right next to its bank that launders all the money. Maine, this is Maine, okay? It is like down east. Used to be one of the most American places you could go in the country, and now it is literally overrun by just stealing everything from the Mainers. And honestly, it's time for the Mainers to act up and take their state back. This it's disgusting. It is disgusting. Okay, and so there's a lot more I could say, but I think I'm going to end it there because I'm having to do this by a different situation here because I'm having trouble with my electronics once again. But I will mention this on my way out. As far as Israel last, we have this situation with something called FalcoNet. And speaking of the, having Israel in our military and our intelligence fused in 100%, which is absolutely horrifying. FalcoNet is software that is by a Israeli company called Cognite, Cognyte. I'll link it below. This is an Israeli surveillance company. So if you want to call 202-224-3121, 2321 for Thune to stop this SIAA integration of Israel in our intelligence, then please do so. But we have FalcoNet software running through Cognite that is deployed onto U.S. highways and neighborhoods, roads, etc., wherever they're supposedly looking for somebody, but it's a total violation of our Fourth Amendment. SCOTUS just ruled this around geofencing. This is it on steroids, our Fourth Amendment total violation. We have basically a situation where an Israeli surveillance company is putting in bans, or in Texas, for instance, they have the Department of Public Safety just bought for $4.5 million taxpayer dollars 4 Chevy Tahoes, outfitted with what is this Cognite system that mimics a cell phone tower. It mimics a tower, an EMF tower, and it has the same capabilities, and it captures all of thousands of cell phones in wherever it goes, and it captures everything from them, and especially their location of people. So they're looking for, just think of the Assassins Deployment Program we would have if we have the fusion of Israeli intelligence or military with our government. And so this is what's going on, this FalcoNet software in Cognite in our police system. There is 75 agencies across 27 states already using this, and this is what we're dealing with. So I'm going to leave that there as part of why we have to decouple and why we hope that there is this Israel last phenomenon to trust, the PLAN, right? Because we need, if they're going to leverage all that intelligence now, great. Fuse it into our U.S. system, no. But we need this to end, of the threat of Mossad assassinations here in the USA, plus, not to mention the, it's already happened to so many of us, the attacks on Americans with everything else that they do. And so there is, I just mentioned this, as a contrast, we have the AFD in Germany. Of course, they're trying to ban the AFD, the EU going hard, but they had a huge conference recently, and there was a massive Antifa rollout of like 20,000 Antifa protesters against the AFD. That's the Alternative for Deutschland, who is the right-wing party trying to get sovereignty back to Germany, and trying to, of course, have there be, basically how to stop the EU from controlling Germany going forward. And, they've been trying to outlaw it. They've been murdering them by the half dozens. Tons of this going on where AFD members keep ending up dead. And Maximilian Krah is actually an MP out of Germany, and he basically is saying, their hope is that they can have a new. They have about 40% of the polling, so they're growing and growing, and that the Antifa was defeated because they started their conference so early in the morning that the Antifa crowd didn't show up early enough, and so they were able to basically stop any blockade that Antifa thought it was going to do. And so basically, AFD is saying, it is MAGA Europe trying to be the most allied to the USA, to be able to have there be the same policies. We're seeing also the Save Europe Act being put through by Eva Vlat, EU MP. Eva Vlat with the Save Free Speech, the Save Europe Act, thanking Elon Musk for the ability to post on X, and so as we're watching this happen, we're seeing where this is going to go. AFD is saying we with our remigration that we're hoping for with the Islamification of Germany, it is the same thing here in the USA, where it's like the last 10 years, anybody brought in through the mass migration programs has to go, and then the immigrants before them who have established that they want to assimilate and integrate into German society have to stay. That they are full pro-immigration that is real and has to do with integration and assimilation, and anti the no-go zones, the Islamic violence, the crap of what has been von der Leyen's migration invasion into Europe, etc. And so I might leave it there at 42. Different than what I thought I was going to do today. Kind of been a rant about how do we stop really what is, everything outside the new covenant. Why are we dealing with the murder cabal of the bankster elite? Because they continuously attack us and have done all false flags, have done everything to manipulate and control the United States for the last 120 years, ever since the assassination of McKinley. And we are taking the country back. And it might be a step-by-step leveraging situation, but I believe that there will be Israel last, as they're being brought down notch by notch, and I pray for that, because it's not about the Jewish people. It is about the psychotic elite operating out of Israel, has the most pedophiles moving into Israel that are given sanctuary there. When they are arrested anywhere else in the world, they can flee to Israel. They're giving full sanctuary. This situation is being, I believe, corralled and brought down, and may we all be free from the Radonites. And you are free. Thanks for watching. If you found something that was refreshing or important news, there's ways of support below. And I thank so much for watching today. You are free, and I'll see you next time.